Right, guys, we're here today with Mr. Paul Mort. Mr. Paul Mort, how are you today?
Mate, I am great. I'm just buzzing at the laughing already.
Superb, superb. Look at that face, ready to go. Unstoppable.
Yes, mate. I'm excited you've got me on. I'm honored that you've got me on, and I'm excited to share some wisdom and some knowledge and some laughs and hopefully some great distinction and insights for people.
Hey, we are so pleased to have you on because you've got an incredible story, something that we're probably not going to be able to get into the complete roots of today because we're limited with time. We could probably go on for hours and hours and hours. Yes. But you've overcome a lot of things throughout your life and throughout your career. You now do this big thing which has all these different iterations that I know of, typically involving some kind of expletive.
Yes.
So for anybody listening right now, chances are Paul is probably going to swear a little bit. Okay, so just be aware of that. We're not going to beep anything out.
This is my record. I'm looking at me watch here and I'm thinking this might be my record.
Have you not said anything yet? There we go. He's broken it. So anyways, Paul, you've been around in this kind of industry as such for a long time, right? How long have you been doing this for?
I became a PT when I was 21, so 19 years I've been self-employed for.
And then from that, PT is kind of evolved, right? You're no longer.
It's totally different. When I did it, it was mate, honestly, when I did it, I was in a gym. Gyms were still paying people to work there. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
You tend to have to pay to work in a gym these days. So way back then I was a PT, and then I got sacked from the gym. So then I had to train people at their houses, go to people's houses. And then I set up this boot camp thing that blew up. And then loads of people asked me how I did it. And then I became a business coach, and then I lost my shit. And then I kept business coaching. Then I set up the supplement company. And then I've ended up doing what I do now, which is coaching married businessmen to get the shit together. So yeah, a long old journey there.
And it kind of feels like, I've sort of seen this journey from a distance, and it kind of feels like you've almost, come about your calling in many respects. I see you now, and I see you more comfortable in the role that you're in right now than ever before, right? You seem to everything just seems natural and normal, and it just kind of rolls off your tongue, and you seem excited about things, all the time, which is cool. And you seem like you've continued to do what you probably intended to do as a PT, right? PT boot camp. So. Obviously, the intent is to kind of help people from afar in many respects, right? Yeah. And then you've continued that narrative, right?
Yeah, mate. Right now, I feel like I'm on a mission, and I feel like I'm helping me 6 years ago. The version of me from 6 years ago, that's who I feel like I'm talking to all the time. And that's why it's easy. And also, I think one thing that I've learned a lot about in this last year was I've been working with a guy called Dr. John DeMartini. And he has this concept of values. He wrote an amazing book called The Value Factor. And he said, essentially, I just do stuff. I figured out what my values were. And one of them is just performance, like this, talking, performing, showing off, if you like, being the center of attention. And I always kind of knew that. I always loved that. But I kind of always thought it was wrong. And then this year, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to do the shit that I love the most. And I'm not going to do much stuff that I hate anymore. Sometimes we have to eat shit. But I get that sometimes I have to eat shit. But why would I create a life where I'm constantly doing shit that I loathe? Why would I do that? Try and force myself to do things that I don't like. For example, a lot of guys watching might not know this. A lot of guys do know this. I like being in shape, but I don't like weight training.
Right.
But what I do love is training jiu-jitsu. So I train jiu-jitsu all of the time. And what happened? I got in fucking the shape of my life. I never have to motivate myself to do it. I don't even need discipline to do it because I'm naturally disciplined to do things that I value. That's where I feel I'm at right now. You never have to force me to do a video. I never procrastinate over being on the stage. I never need to watch I never need a pre-workout anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you have to do those things where you need a pre-workout or you need motivated or you need something to just get you over that procrastination.
You don't enjoy it, right?
Exactly. And that's all that I'm essentially saying. I'm doing things that I love to do and I get to do rather than I never say the words I need to or I have to anymore or I try not to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's and throughout this journey, I think a lot of people want to know, how we come to that point. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
Yeah, I'm 40.
40, right? So really, in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to say you're not old here because, again, I'm 40 plus, so I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Yeah.
And it seems like it takes this period of time and these almost like hardships to come about that point. And, you know, we talk a lot about living on form. We talk about, you know, what does it take for someone to live on form and have this kind of performance narrative around their entire day and to function with family, friends, you know, business, all these different things, and take that same mindset and switch it across to all those different things. And I know that throughout the journey that I've seen, you seem to have kind of dropped the ball a few times, picked it back up again, and then ran with it like hell and done really well in things that, you know, previously you self-admitted to kind of saying, I got that so wrong. And now I've seen why I've got it wrong. I've figured this out. And now what I'm doing, I'm now pursuing it like this 100 miles an hour now. And then you just don't stop
as well. And you might get this, like, I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to mess things up. I'm willing to be wrong now. Before I was like, my way is the only way. This is the only way to do it. Now I'm like, you know what? For example, we started a podcast in August this year, and we've had some big players on it. We've had Tyson Fury on it. We've had Chris Ramsey on it. We've had loads of different boxers. We've had the SAS guys on it and that. And I'm quite happy to say that I love doing it. We've done great from it, but I would be okay to just stop it. I wouldn't feel like a failure because I stopped it. Like, I think that's what I've just gone through. I'm like, actually, do you know what? If I want to stop this, I'll stop doing it. I'm not going to, again, if I don't enjoy it, I'm just going to fucking stop doing it.
And
I think you're right. And sometimes I've just ran into
right?
Stop what?
Stop forcing things, right?
Yeah, totally.
So do you think you were doing that before? Do you think you were trying to force things?
I was definitely trying to force things. I was trying to force people to fit my pictures, force people. So everyone had to buy into my way of doing things, or they were this, they were that. I got angry with them. I expected me from everybody else. Force myself to weight train, force myself to do things inside of my business that I didn't want to do, force myself to try and get organized. I pay somebody else that does that now. Do you know what I'm saying?
So it feels like you've almost, you know, you've gone through this phase of almost censoring Paul Mort.
Yes.
You know, just saying, look, I have to do this, and I have to fit this mold, and I have to do this, and I have to exercise, and I have to get up at, you know, all that bullshit that you hear in you know, the performance realms, right? When people are talking about performance, they're going, look, you've got to get up at this time. You've got to have this routine. You've got to be organized. You've got to have all this stuff. And you seem to have it, but in your way, right?
Mid 1000%. It's one of the things, when I first started this male coaching things, I used to say, this is what you have to do in the morning. And I spent most of my time trying to force people to do what I wanted them to do.
And were you doing it?
Yeah.
You were doing this.
But here's what I understand. This is what I figured out. I can't make people, you know this as a coach, mate. I can't make people do things that they don't value.
Yep.
It's like this is what happens in relationships. We try and live somebody else's values, and then there's just tension and turbulence all the time. So I'm like, now, listen, I get the importance of a morning ritual. You want to put yourself in peak state. You want to put yourself on form. You want to put yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally in a good state. We call it an 8 out of 10. If you're not an 8, you can't be great. But what gets you to an 8 might not get me to an 8. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, listen, I do a cold shower, but you don't have to. Don't force yourself to do it. I do yoga. You don't have to do it. Do what makes you an 8. What makes you an 8 doesn't make me an 8. So if you love weight training, great. I don't. So I've got two options. I can either, I still want the benefits of weight training though. So I want to be stronger. I want to be leaner. I want to be healthier. But I can get that payoff from something that I like doing, which in my case is jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, which is resistance training, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, resistance training is resistance training.
I used to think it was just cardio until I started getting into it and started getting my arse handed to it. Yeah.
So you have this performance thing that you're doing with all these guys, and and what you're figuring out from this is that everybody's route and everybody's motivation and everybody's drive all come from different places, right?
It's like unique. It's like they're like fingerprints. People's values are like fingerprints. I think the thing that I learned from Dr. John Demartini was that people think values are social idealisms like honesty, integrity. And then he's like, actually, and I've got no problem admitting this. This is one of my biggest breakthroughs this year. Sometimes I'm honest, sometimes I lie. Sometimes I'm nice, sometimes I'm naughty. Sometimes I'm loving, sometimes I'm not. Like, I'm okay with, I've owned all of those now. I just try and live in the good stuff and visit the bad stuff like that. Sometimes I'm going to display traits that I don't like about myself. But this is what I mean by values. I'm like, everybody has a unique fingerprint. some stuff pushes their buttons that doesn't push mine. Some people, things turn you on that don't turn me on. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's I suppose that's one of the biggest insights that I've got is from years of just trying to motivate myself and force myself and then hating myself for not doing it. I think that's the worst part. I try and force myself to do something that I just didn't value, even if I created a deep emotional connection to it, which I think is important. We can create deep emotional connections to things and get them done, but I can't create a life that I love doing things that I love, essentially. There's no happy ending to an unhappy journey. Like anyone that said, and I suppose the people that this resonated the most with when I've spoke about this at events is like ex-bodybuilders. They have this unhappy as fuck journey, and then they get on the stage, and then they're like, it's not as good as it doesn't feel like I thought it would. And I had this conversation with Tyson Fury. He had that. He beat Klitschko, and he was like, "Is this it?"
Yeah, and it's kind of
like he hated training. Now he's flipped this. The reason he's got his shit together now is because he loves training, and the fight is a bonus.
Yeah, before, so he looks at it the other way around, training. Right?
Yeah, he trained for the fights before. Now he just trains. And
so, do you think that's understanding the difference between a goal and an intent, right?
Mate, I would say that, yeah.
Because it's obviously a goal we're looking at like something in the future, right? So so a fighter's going to look at the fight. Yes. And that's going to be the focus. The focus is on the fight, but then the intent that you have to have on a daily basis has to be to get in the ring and do your shit, right?
Yes.
Get in the ring, you spar, you do all that stuff, and then the goal ultimately in the end is to get in the ring and fight. And
it's like the great little analogy for this that I love is the difference between feel great now and feel great when. Most people don't give themselves permission to feel great now because they can only feel great when they've hit the thing, when they've done the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, I want to feel great now. Like
I'm sure, you know, many of the listeners will have hit up all these New Year's resolutions in January, right? New Year's resolutions are typically based around goals, right?
Yeah.
So people go, right, there's this end goal that I'm going to get to. I'm going to lose X amount of weight, or I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You know, I'm going to own this, whatever it might be. But then it gets lost because they don't have this daily intent that moves towards that end goal, right? Yeah. So when you're speaking to these guys, right? Yeah. And again, you know, I'm saying guys because it's men that you deal with, right?
It is men, yeah. I mean, I've got a few women, but it's mostly men, yeah.
Yeah, you can relate to them. You know, again, like you said before, it's you 6 years ago. So it's much easier for you to deliver that and talk in the way that you feel comfortable, right?
Endless content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Endless content.
So whilst you're trying to channel this journey, and I'm assuming you're helping these guys just navigate and just going, right, you know, you probably need to go right here, left here, or you're begging questions that they probably don't beg themselves. And
that's exactly what I'm doing, mate. I'm asking. That's all my coaching style is now. I mean, as of actually, it doesn't matter when you release it or not. Last week I won Master Coach of the Year again. 2 years in a row I've won this thing, champ. And the only reason I win that is because I'm not. I suppose, in my opinion, mentoring and coaching is different. Mentoring is telling somebody what to do. I do a bit of that, giving advice.
And at times, I think that's suitable, right?
Totally suitable, yeah. If someone asks for it. But often, coaching for me is about asking world-class questions.
Yeah.
And often, the questions are uncomfortable. So it's a case of, that then. And a great analogy that I love is that questions are the steering wheel of the mind. So when you talk about this intent thing, I think if the journey feels like you're on a rumble strip on the motorway, like that's a sign that you need to just steer back on. I.e., sometimes I think it's a strategy that's the problem, which is I think what you're saying there, right? You're like, right, how can I? It's almost like, listen, I get the goal, but at the same time, how can I enjoy it?
Yeah, how do I get there?
How can I enjoy this whole process? How can I set up my strategy to help me win rather than to almost force me to lose? Like, I'm like, if it relies on willpower all the time, you're going to fucking fail. It doesn't matter what it is. Because willpower means I'm forcing myself to do something that I don't
and you're not
like.
enjoying it.
Yeah, that's no way to live. And like I say, I don't want to sound too hippie-ish because that's not me. Sometimes we have to eat shit. You know this. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do. But I'm like, I want a percentage. If I can get the ball in my court where 95% of the time I'm doing shit that I can't wait to do, I'm winning.
Right. So I'm gonna pull you off a little bit there and go in a different direction because you said, I know you put me up on that one straight away. I said it and I thought Paul Mort's gonna pull me up on that one, quite literally.
Got me perfect glasses on as well.
So what you're talking about there is essentially and pointing towards, you know, you've got to suck up shit sometimes and,
Yes.
and you know, deal with that, right?
Yeah.
And this is something where you've defined this very much in the way you've talked to people, and you've explained, look, I've had these times in life where I've just had to suck it up, right? I've had to suck it up and just deal with it. And it's a really crap way of saying to somebody, look, you just have to deal with it, because that doesn't really help a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Is that you've had to deal with these hardships.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this to many of the guests that we've had on.
Yeah.
And I talk about hardship and how that helps you define that stuff that you just have to do. And I talk to the kids about this. You know, I talk to the kids and I said, look, there's certain things in life that you've just got to do. And what they do is they teach you the things like discipline. They teach you about the stuff like, you know, in the military, you've talked to the guys from the SS, right? About the making the bed in the morning. They make the bed in the morning because they start the day on a win. Now, to a kid, making their bed in the morning is like a chore. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to do that because, you know, for whatever reason, I don't really understand what the rationale for not wanting to make your bed would be. But nevertheless, you know, I remember it as a kid. I didn't want to make my bed. But then they start this and they start on this win, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that all of this hardship and these things that you've challenged with, so just for the listeners that don't know you, I'm sure there are a few of them that maybe haven't heard your story. So let's go back to hardship and where this started. So where were the challenges for you as a boy, going into being a man, to being a father, to being a husband, to being all those different things? Where is all this journey gone, and where's it taken all these different?
So as a boy, I didn't really have many. So we've just released this book, Paul Mort Will Save Your Life. And the problem that I had with the publishers was asking me about my childhood. And I was like, it was boring. My parents are still together. I never lived out of a dumpster. When did I turn American, by the way? By the way, let me tell you to text me on my cell phone. Dude, I can't believe it. I never ate out of a dumpster. I haven't got all of that hardship from my youth, right?
Yeah.
Probably explains why that in 2014, I built this business. I lived in Marbella, 4-bedroom villa with a private pool, great business, successful business, money, 2 amazing kids, hot wife, but I was suicidal because, well, there are many reasons but essentially I ended up there because I'd sacrificed everything just to build what I thought was what I wanted, which was all of that.
So what was that? So was that pursuance of a financial goal or a?
It was the 4-bedroom villa with a private pool, 4-hour work week. Yeah, that was it. And that sounds quite bad, 4-hour work week. That's where I was at. I thought I wanted this thing where this is what I built, and then I got there and I was like Tyson Fury said, "Is this it? Is this all there is?" It was almost like, Phil, the way I'd like to describe it is it was like climbing up a ladder, sacrificing everything to get to the top. Friendships, family, almost my marriage, my mental health, my physical health. I mean, you saw me when I was 5 stone overweight. I posted a picture yesterday. It was crazy. It blew my head off, that picture. I was like, wow. And then I got to the top of the ladder and I was like, it was against the wrong building.
Right.
But what I really think happened was I got in a position, and I think this is one of the problems for modern men these days, at least all of the ones that I deal with, is that they lack purpose. My purpose had gone. I was like, well, I did build a successful business thing. I built the have 2 kids thing. I built the wife thing. I built the Marbella thing. And then I stopped striving. I stopped aiming. I didn't know what else to do.
So do you think that's built on this kind of Western construct that you
1,000,000%.
have this depiction of what success looks like, right?
Mate,
This is what success looks like.
Yeah, there's no entrepreneurs in my family, so I found it quite lonely as well. Like, I don't have any, especially when I moved from Marbella, I didn't know anyone there.
And I'm assuming, you grew up in South Shields, right?
I grew up in South Shields, yeah.
Right. So South Shields, again, it's not, it reminds me of kind of my hometown is that there's not a great deal of drive kicking around. People aren't excited and people, and I would imagine that picture that you had in your head of this villa there and whatever it was.
I've made it.
Was properly but at the time I would imagine when you were a kid was properly delusional. People would go, "Are you serious?" A 2-bed house round the corner will be like a massive mantle for you.
Yeah, mate.
You've got these visions and these dreams of these,
huge.
And then you work towards it. You got it, and then it was just this hollow kind of.
Yeah, it's like I think a lot of men these days. You think about our society. It's right. You leave school, maybe you go to college, maybe you go to university. I wasn't smart enough to get in either of those. Well, I didn't apply myself enough to get in either of those. And then you get a job, and then you meet a girl, and then you get married, and then you have kids. Yeah, and then what do you do next? Like, what do we do next as men? That's it. Like, so men now, the men that I speak to, get to this position in their life where they just become I call them the wandering man. We're just wandering from place to place, not really sure where we're going, and just the only purpose becomes, let's get to the weekend. That's it. And I get that. That was kind of me. I was wandering. I wasn't really going anywhere. And the other challenge that I have, the two biggest challenges that I think men have, is we don't know how to control our state, or men don't know how to control their state. And they do, or in other words, they don't know how to get on form. So they don't know how to get on form. So the state is defined as the condition that someone or something finds themselves in at a particular moment in time.
Cool.
This is what most depression is. This is what all anxiety is. This is what overwhelm is. This is what stress is. They're all states. And men don't know how to control that. In fact, they actually don't think they can control that. But they know they can. And you think about that. That's why we've got such a drinking culture. People do that to change their state.
Yeah,
people smoke, change the state. Well, everything that we do is usually to impact our state. And state is essentially, in our game, we talk about physiology, where you're at physically, where you're at with your posture, your breathing, your facial expressions, all of that stuff. And then we talk about focus, where your attention is, what you're focused on. If I focus on shit that makes me anxious, guess what happens? I get anxious. You know what I'm saying? If I'm focused on how I don't want to feel, I get what I don't want. So people right now, the challenge that we've got in this, we're in tier 3. I've got a few more beer for a little while. The stress that people are having is they're focused on everything that they can't do. So they're getting the feelings that go with that. Focus on what you can do. That's all that we've done. And then the third piece of that is language, which I think is also a huge issue right now. The language. I did a video today on imposter syndrome. I'm like,
I saw it.
It's just discomfort, man. Come on.
It's interesting because what you're doing there is you're taking something. I would quite happily use that term.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Because essentially it's people understand what it is. People understand what it means in many respects. But then also what you've done is you've challenged the language and gone, no, actually it is this.
Because the language
in many respects I can't argue with you. I can't argue with what you're saying. Yeah. But I also can't argue with the fact that I will use imposter syndrome when you've used that term before, and for the exact same purpose that you're talking about, is defining discomfort to people, right?
Yeah, it's mad. It's like sometimes I also think that language can serve us, right? So if I flip something from I'm absolutely furious to I'm irritated, I get a completely different feeling. Like the language can have such an impact. Like using that word imposter syndrome just seems to add intensity to me. It's intensity to what is just discomfort, mate. You know what I mean? Other things like, I feel like my heart's going to explode. It's not though. I feel like the weight of the world's on my shoulders. It's not though, is it?
And it's almost like that placebo effect, right? Is that you tell yourself something enough, you believe it, right? Yeah. And I think that's another thing that I think men and human beings in general deal with, right? Is that
I was given the label bipolar. They told me you are a manic depressive, and I was like, oh shit, I'm broken. That was back in 2014.
Right.
Now in fact, the challenge that we've got right now is we're doing a lot of PR. And they're like, Paul, do you want to talk about this bipolar disorder in that you got labeled it, but you're not? I was like, yeah, I don't have it. I didn't catch it. It's not contagious. I don't have cream for it. But it's like, I was just given this label, and I think we're too quick to do that. Here's a label for you. I was never given any kind of test. They just said, here's some pills. I took them. It made me feel like shit, so I stopped taking them.
And was that based off like symptoms? So you've gone and you've said, look, this is how I feel. These are my reactions. This is what does. And therefore.
Yeah, it was based on having big highs and big lows.
Right.
What I've since came to realize, and again, this is just my opinion. I'm not a doctor or even a shrink. I'm just a humble coach from South Shields who's experienced some shit. What I realize now is actually, for me, it's always an energy challenge, first of all, physiology. I would go from events that required or things that required a lot of adrenaline, whether that was just speaking at an event or getting on the stage or stress with work or taking loads of coke. Adrenaline high. Guess what happens? What goes up must come down.
Yep.
And then I just learned to manage my energy better, manage my physiology better, manage my focus and my attention better, and then get a handle on my language. It's fucking funny that I should say that. That's not. There's actually a
dialogue, right?
But again, there's a chapter in my new book called "Mind Your Fucking Language."
Hey, but go back to when we were kids, right? Yeah. So when we were kids, if somebody said one of those words, it was like massively impact. I remember hearing my dad swear for the first time. We were on holiday I think we were somewhere like Gran Canaria, right? And one of the timeshare. Do you remember the people that used to come up to your bug, yeah? And this timeshare guy came up to us, and of course, us kids were like, oh yeah, can we go? They were offering like free food and blah, blah, blah. You just go and sit and listen to this sales pitch. I remember the next day, a guy came up to us after us wasting like 2 hours of the previous day. them basically trying to sell my parents this holiday home. To the next day, this guy walked up to my dad, and my dad just turned around and said, "Will you just fuck off?"
Really?
And I was like, whoa, I've never heard my dad say anything like that. And I remember it. I remember how, you know, it's like one of them things that's just framed in your mind forever. Right? And it was just mad. Whereas now I'm like, you know, because vocabulary changes, right, all the time.
It does change.
And depending on what we're talking about.
Where's this imposter syndrome came from?
Well, again, do you think this is this self-help kind of narrative that's kind of came about? And I've talked about it before and dismissed it to some degree, and you have as well. Is there's this whole self-help almost dictionary that people talk about, and then people almost convince themselves they've got a problem, so therefore then they're sold this concept. Right. Yeah. So
we're desperate to label ourselves as well. It's almost like we want to make something part of our identity. 100% our identity. Yeah, 100% our identity. And that's it, because we want to identify with something or some people. I remember when I first got diagnosed bipolar, I started to join all these groups, and I started to like all these pages that had something to do with bipolar, because I felt like I had a place.
You felt like a community, right?
And yeah, now I look at them, I'm like, holy shit. It's like often, and listen, if it offends someone, it does. I get added to these men's mental health groups, and the fucking cesspits. Like, listen to that language there. It's a cesspit. That's how I talk about Twitter as well. Twitter's a cess, but that's a strong word. That, wow. Is it just full of negative people, or is it just full of people who like to complain? That's essentially it. But it's just full of men feeling sorry for themselves, which I get. I've been suicidal. I've worked with hundreds of men that have been suicidal. But then with just people, everyone's feeling sorry for each other, and it's just a cycle. And I'm like, wow, it's this language thing is and no one really talks about it that much either.
And it's you know, so forums powerful. And things like this where, you know, people just they almost vent, but they vent negatively.
Yes.
Nobody's venting positively. And if you do vent positively, I think people just tear you down and go, oh my God, you know, it's not that simple. It's not this, you know, we were talking before about this whole kind of motivational memes, right? Where somebody turns around and goes, you know, you just got to suck it up. And that doesn't help anybody.
No.
But it kind of does.
Funny enough, mate, I had a conversation with a publisher yesterday. I talking about doing something with Piers Morgan. And he has this concept of manning up. I'm like, well, that doesn't help anyone. Man up compared to who? And I'm like, I'll go to war with this guy. I'm like, you think about this. I've spoken to the heavyweight champion of the world. I can't tell him to man up. I've spoken to guys that are in the special forces. Are you going to tell them to man up? You're not, are you? So that whole concept doesn't work either. So my favorite thing, as I say to people, is I used to say, take responsibility for how you feel and what you've created. But then what started happening was when I use that language, people would think it was their fault or they were to blame, because that's what it feels like. Take responsibility. Oh, well, it's my fault. But now my favorite way to say this is just take charge. Take charge. Like, almost, if I was American, I'd say something like, take back your power. But I'm not American, so I have to say take charge, because that's what it is, right? When I'm pointing the finger anyway, I'm powerless, because I'm putting the power in somebody else's or something else's hands. I can't do anything about that when I'm blaming. But what I can do is I can take back my power, and that just means take charge. I'm just going to take charge of how I feel. I'm going to take charge of my response to things. I'm going to take charge of my situation. I'm going to take charge of my past. I'm going to take charge of that. Yeah, I'm going to take charge of that.
So how did you do that?
So I did that.
So obviously at certain points you haven't been in charge, right? And you've made this, you know, you've explained this, and going back to that, I remember reading the stuff. You know, you put this video out about, you know, you being suicidal, and you talk through it all, and you blah blah blah. Yeah. And I remember some of the comments on there. There was stuff like, you know, and it was almost like, and I think the challenge you've got with stuff like that nowadays is that, because I think there's so many people out there ultimately just seeking a bit of attention, right?
Yes.
Seeking a bit of attention, wanting a bit of to stand out, right? They want to stand out in this crowd.
You know, that was actually me sometimes. Like, one of the worst things I'd do is I'd disappear for a couple of days at a time when I was low. I'd disappear, and I'd do it just to get attention.
Yeah.
I didn't know how else to get it.
And you know, and everybody's striving for something, right? They want a nod from somebody. They want somebody to say you look great or whatever it might be, right? And I think social media's kind of exacerbated this that once existed, that you used to do in your local peer groups or whatever it might be. So I remember some of the comments, and some of the comments on that were about kind of you trying to seek this attention, trying to, you know, use it as it's just a story, it's just you know, whatever it might be. And it did catapult you into this different stratosphere, because all of a sudden you've gone, look, I'm going to be just straight up about this. I'm going to be honest about this. And you actually very candidly just mention it now.
I did.
Which is, there's never any kind of, oh, maybe I shouldn't talk about this.
Mate, and do you know, Phil, this is the mad thing about that video. Because obviously I get, like you say, it propelled me into another place because no one had really had the balls to talk about it in a way that I talked about it, which was just in a way that I would need it. I just described it in the language that I felt at the time.
And do you think that's because so many people related to it?
Mate, 100%. Because, I didn't even plan. That day, I was shooting marketing videos. I shot 4 marketing videos. And I sent me a video guy, listen, before you go, I think I've got something I want to say here. Let's do it. And all of that, there was no script. I didn't plan to do that video, like none of it, not even a script.
Yep. And
it just came out. And he's done an amazing job of editing it. And you'll see anybody that comes to anything that I've done, even listening to this, that's how I talk.
Yeah.
There's no act, there's no reading anything. It was all just from my heart. I don't have to think about it. And that's liberating for me because I've got nothing to hide either.
Yeah.
So how did I do it? How did I do it was the question, right? I did it by, it's been a long process. Someone said to me, I posted some transformation photos. I'm like, oh, how long did that take? And I felt
this is one of them questions where I expect you to give me a sentence and we've got it summarized.
Yeah, exactly. I said 5 years. Someone said, how long did that take? I was like 5 years, and I felt a bit shit because it wasn't like 5 weeks. The 5 years it took.
12-week program. That's
terrible. Anyway, so I went. So how did I do it? Essentially, I went on loads of courses, hired loads of coaches, but essentially, I just took action and made the main focus my state, that physiology, that where my focus is. That's essentially it. But it probably started with what I needed at the time was a bit of tough love, because the challenge that we have as men when we're like that is that we feel like a burden. We feel like we can't maybe talk to anybody about it. And we do that because often we get mollycoddled. Like I work with a bunch of guys who've been mollycoddled. Like the wife's messages trying to get them on my program. I'm like, no, you're not signing them up. He has to reach out to me. You're mollycoddling him. You're mothering him. That's not going to help him.
Yeah.
So at the time, I needed someone to, because listen, we get, as men, we often, especially because you got to remember, I was a successful businessman. I made a lot of money. So I was used to people blowing smoke up my arse. I was used to people telling me how great I was. So I needed someone to hand me my arse. And I don't know if that was by hook or by crook or by luck, but I met a lady called Donna. And Donna was from Sunderland and she was rough. Donna is rough. And she's just...
Donna.
Funny enough, I seen her about a year ago and I hadn't seen her for like 4 years maybe.
Okay.
And I made sure I got a photo. I talk about her in my slides, and when I'm speaking, I talk about her all the time because she basically... She almost said to me,
she's listening, how she said that.
Donna's good. She's in the book. She's in the book. Aye, she's great, Donna. She's great. And she almost looked, I remember I looked at her over the top of her glasses. You know when someone looks at you over the top of their glasses?
Yeah.
My mom used to do that when I was a kid. She'd look at me, I knew I was in trouble then.
Like teachers.
Yeah. And she basically said, Paul, if you don't get your shit together, you're going to die. And she knew. I remember she came to see me one day because I used to have to see someone every single week that had to come to my house, mate, suicide watch team, right?
Right.
And I come to my house and I remember one day, I was at this point where I knew I should get my shit together. Everyone has I know I should get a handle on this. But this one day I remember I'd been on a sniff and a booze all weekend. And she just looked at me over the top of her eyes and I was like, yeah, this is, she's not going to tolerate my shit. Yeah. So it was tough love. And I say this quite a lot, is she fucking woke me up. She wasn't there to be my cheerleader. I've had cheerleaders. She wasn't there to be my shrink. She wasn't there to tell me that everything. She wasn't there to tell me to keep a mood diary. She basically told me, listen, Paul, you need to get your shit together. You're going to die. And that was kind of the catalyst for me. It's like, actually, there's tough love. There's something in it. And again, I don't want it to sound like manning up because that's not what it is. Because tough love's still love. And I need
it's honesty.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
One of my other guests, we talked about this and we went through the whole thing about, somebody at some point just, it's like when your mates tell you something in retrospect, right? They say, oh, yeah, that was the case. Like, when you split up with somebody.
Yeah, we knew she was inside.
Oh, she wasn't, I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Surely as a mate. Yeah. And then essentially this is, we're going to have some psychologists on the show as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk to them about things like this. But essentially you've got this person. And I think this is what happens with trainers and coaches, right? Is that you get these people that, you don't know their friends, you don't know their family. So they end up talking and venting to you, right? Yes. So you become almost like this, almost like this psychological, person.
Yeah.
Where you're
psychological punch bag.
Yeah, you're listening to their problems because you're not going to relay that back to people, so they're comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So, and again, you're kind of providing this service to these guys and going, look, you're okay telling me because I've told the world.
Yeah.
You know, so I have no problems with it. So if you tell me, I'm not going to judge you by it.
Hey,
because
mate,
that's me, right?
do you know what's often funny, mate? I don't let them tell that story because I can always tell. And again, this is going to sound harsh. Someone will give me shit, but I'm used to it. I can always tell when someone's had quite a lot of counseling because they can repeat that story word for word. They are addicted to telling the fucking script of why it's different for them. I have to cut their balls off a lot of the time. So when I'm coaching somebody, I'm like, listen, I get it. You want to tell me your story. I want to solve something. I can't solve the story. I need to, so sometimes I'm like, what's the question? Because you're fucking waffling.
And do you think the story's been constructed? Do you think sometimes because they've convinced themselves, they've told themselves it so many times that they've tweaked little bits and, you know, it becomes like this story where, that doesn't sound too good. So I'm going to change that and turn it into this.
Sometimes it might be true, but what I know is that the past is a present time memory, right? Of something that's happened with, and I love this, your imagination filling in the gaps.
Yeah, the bits you can't remember, right?
And all of the meaning. All of it. So an event is just an event. Something that's happened is just something that's happened. It's you that makes it mean, you that gets to decide the meaning. So I remember I did a video about negative people. I'm like, there's no such thing as negative people, only negative thoughts about people. People say shit. And I actually think there is such a thing as negative people.
I'm figuring that one out in my head.
Yeah, so people say shit, I make it mean something. I can get to decide what it means. So
yeah, it's like somebody offending you. You have to take offense first, right?
Exactly.
If you don't take offense, no one can offend you.
Exactly. So my mum won't listen to this. It's very terrifying. My mum listens to all of my podcasts, which is super weird, right? She doesn't listen to the ones that I've been on. She loves to hear me interviewing people, right? So anyway, my mum is unbelievable at complaining. Amazing. I'm sure yours is as well, right? Amazing at complaining. Amazing at just finding a negative. Loves to complain, loves to gossip. And he used to grate the shit out of me. I used to avoid her because I'd come out my mum's feeling like I'd been assaulted by just negativity. And then I just got my head around. I was like, that's just my mum being my mum. That's just my mum making shapes with her lips and her tongue and noise coming out. I get to decide what it means. And here's the reality. I decided that complaining made my mum feel better. And why would I not want my mum to feel better? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
This changed my life. Because we can't.
It's venting, right? We're told to do this. You know, we're told to tell people your problems. I'm like, yeah, but if it's a problem,
that's exactly it, mate.
It's negative, right?
Yeah, we've got this narrative of, tell people your problems, but then zero negativity.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right?
Which one do you want, mate?
You just stopped me in my tracks there. I'm like, I was just about to tell you, and now you've told me zero negativity. So we'll go from here, right?
Yeah, which one do you want? And I thought, and mate, I'll tell you the truth here. I went through this phase that everyone goes through in personal development, I think, which is, cut out all the negative people from your life. I'm like, well, what I realized that I was left with only me. Quite quickly. That's when I lived in Marbella, mate. I'm not even kidding. I cut out all the negative people. And then I realized there was one common denominator. That was me and my thoughts. This was life-changing for me, mate, honestly.
So there's no positive people in amongst all that?
Not really. I mean, that's why I had to travel. I used to travel to the States all the time. And so I was like, that's where all the net positive people are. And
that's where you find it. Right. So you're surrounded by people that you were the top of the tree then?
Yeah.
And again, it's in the right way, right?
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
You were the top of the tree, so therefore you've got no mentors, you've got no one to look up to, you've got no one who's talking more positively than you.
Yes.
And therefore, anywhere you look, it comes across as negative, right?
Yes, mate, absolutely. Yeah. And then I was like, actually, I ended up lonely and isolated. Because you can't run from negative people. I'm doing, for you guys that are listening, I'm doing whatever that's called. What's that called, Phil? Speech marks with my fingers. Rabbit ears. Yeah. Rabbit ears with my fingers. And I can't run from so-called negative people my whole life. Like, who am I going to end up with? Like, I can't, I'm not going to that party because it's full of negative people. What? People just say shit. It's like bad days. I'm like, you didn't have a bad day. You had a 24-hour period. And then your imagination made it mean something. You saw it through the shit-colored spectacles. You can take them off anytime you want. You know, you change the filter on Instagram.
Yeah.
You can do that with any situation you want. Just change the meaning.
I get you.
It's powerful shit.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's hard. By the way, this has took a lot of training. It wasn't like, oh yes, I've had an aha moment.
Oh yeah, you can't.
Like it took a lot of training. This is something that I practice every day. So every morning, mate, I'm like, I ask the same questions almost every day. What are my priorities? What am I most excited about today? That's one of my favorite questions. What am I most excited about today?
Right. So are you logging these? Are you writing these down? Or are you just in your head? You just going right?
No, I'm a journaler. I'm a journaler.
You're a journaler.
Yeah, I do what I call I would probably call it prompted journaling. So it's kind of like if you've seen Brendan Bouchard's High Performance Planner, that's where I first learning a little bit about those questions. They were just a little bit too American for me. So we ask things like, how do I want to feel today? Because listen, I don't wake up at 10 out of 10 every morning. I wake up probably about a 5 some days. So I've got to get myself up. How do I want to feel? Why? Emotional connection of feeling better. What am I willing to do to feel like that? So it might be, right, I'm just going to do these breathing exercises. It might be go to the gym. It might be go for a run. It might be go for a walk. It might be send a nice message to someone. It might be get clear on my priorities. Then I've got what am I most excited about today? I mean, I love answering that question. Who doesn't want an exciting day? Like, who doesn't want to do exciting shit?
So you're looking at things like, you're expressing gratitude, right? Which is something, again, Burchard talks about and pretty much everybody talks about, right?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
I just don't like that word. I hate that word because they've killed it.
Just sounds
gratitude, they've killed it, haven't they?
Yeah. But
so
it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I like using the word appreciation instead. It's cooler.
Oh, you can use both.
I just, mate, honestly, what I'm excited about today just fills me with excitement because we get to choose. That's a choice. If people are like, oh, well, I've got nothing to get excited about. I'm like, well, great. Because guess what you get to do? You get to choose something to be excited about today. I can't think of many
right. So I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here, right? So I've seen some footage of your guys in the sea. Right. Did they get a choice there? If they weren't excited about that, did they get topped out?
They didn't, mate. Well, yeah,
that's the hardship, right?
Mate, at the time of speaking, it's December, right? I probably shouldn't have said that, but I did. Fuck it. And I've got 25 ladies coming here tomorrow and going in the North Sea. Yeah.
And they're all looking forward to it.
Mate, some of them are like, can I wear a wetsuit? I'm like, you may as well go in the fucking bath if you wear a wetsuit, mate. Yeah, so yeah, the spanner in the works of that is you can frame that any way you want. I can frame it as being painful, or I can frame it as, well, I kind of have to do this, so I may as well have fun doing it.
Right. So again, going back on what we were talking about before, what's the rationale behind them going in the North Sea?
So the rationale behind them going over the North Sea, I had to explain this to the ladies this morning because they don't get it. I said, listen.
Because it's a value, right? You've been talking about value. I want to know what the value is of me going in the North Sea.
Exactly. So it's my game. They have to play. Remember when you were a kid and you used to say, it's my game. I'm taking the ball home if you don't play it. My rules. So it's my rules, this game. But the way that I'm sharing it with them is I'm putting in, it's just a container. Right? It's like any of the SES training that I've done, any of the mad shit that I've done, any of the fighting that I've done, they're just containers to see where I'm at. So these ladies are all, I've been teaching them a bit of business stuff and they're just not doing it. I'm sure you've worked with people like this. Yep. You tell them what to do, you give them advice, they say they're going to do it and they don't do it. So that's because they're scared of something. They're scared of what might happen when they do it. And I'm like, the sea is just a container for them to see where they go mentally. Some of them are like, what's going to happen when I get out? I'm like, you don't have to worry about that bit yet. You're not even in. So they just go through this mental challenge and the other side will get a lesson from it. That's all. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's just a lesson. And I've learned that from a bunch of different courses that I've done. Even the Byron Katie stuff should set up situations where there'd be no food. And then should be like, why are you so triggered? I'm fucking starving. But you're not going to die though, are you? So there's loads of different courses that I've done where I've learned something about myself. And I think the physical body's great for that because we learn a lot about who we are when we're tired. Do you know what I mean? Like you know that advert with Elton John that way. He's like, you're not yourself when you're hungry.
Yeah.
People tend to reveal more about themselves
when they're
at their most tired. Like if you've got athletes on here, they'll all be saying that. When I'm at my most tired, that's where I learn the most about myself.
And that's where people become negative, right?
Oh, dude, 1,000,000%. Yeah, 1,000,000%. My life, if I'm fucked, looks completely different. It's the same. The facts are the same. The feelings are different. The data is the same. The drama is different. Yeah,
that makes sense, with it, right?
Yeah, it's the filter that I've gone on, and that's often. Listen, all my mates on a Monday morning.
Everybody's going to want to know where you got the glasses from. They're going to be like, filters. Amazon, keeps talking about filters and glasses. They special glasses.
Jamie
like Tony Stark's.
Jamie Alden who loves them because of them blue light blocking glasses.
Yeah.
It's like they don't even fucking work. I'm like, yeah, but they look cool. So I've totally fucking forgot my chain of thought here. What was I talking about?
Sorry, I diverted you there.
You killed us in the classes.
You were talking about basically how you see things, right? It's how you perceive something. So you look at anything through, it's like the rose tinted glasses thing they talk about, right?
Yeah, that's all it is. Like
glass half full, all that carry on.
Exactly. I can take any situation and change the frame of it.
Yeah.
Like I can completely change the frame. I said there's guys that let's just say if I had to do a couple of years ago, I did the Great North Run with no training. It's half marathon with no training. I never ran. I was in decent shape because I'd been training boxing, but not running. So my cardio was decent. I was in fairly decent shape. And I was like, fucking hell, I've got two options here. One, I have to get home. Because the great thing about living in South Shields is guess where the Great North Run finishes? Outside my front door. So I have to get home. The roads are closed. I have to get home. And I've got two options then. I can either hate it because it hurts, or I can find a way to love it. And I found a way to love it. You know what I thought about? What I was going to eat when I finished. I'm not even kidding. That's how I got through it. And then all the way through, I'm like, what am I learning here? Can I write an email about this? Can I do a video about what am I learning all the way through this? Yeah, and then we got it done in 2 hours, 5 minutes. Not because I was fit, but because and all of the people that you talk to, Phil, I'll be able to tell you that they're able to take their mind somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you get Ross Edgley on, he'll be able to tell you that. He can take his mind somewhere different.
That must have been the question on most people's lips whilst he was doing the Great British Swim, right?
Yeah.
Is that, what did you think about?
Yeah.
For that whole time, that you're in the water, and Ross is a phenomenal athlete. Is
unbelievable,
and it's crazy just to, and I think that impresses me more than the swim does.
Yes,
is that where did you mentally go for that period of time? Yeah. Where you're in, it's solitary. There's you're not talking to you're not conversing with anybody. There's none of that. You are in the sea with your head in the water, for the most part, right? And probably feeling a little bit of threat at times. I mean, you imagine people who are scared of the sea, what they're, I mean, I'm sure some of the ladies are going to be taken in the North Sea. They'll be like, oh my God, what's in there? And he's like swimming around.
Use condoms, needles. It's the North Sea.
I'm sure Ross wasn't thinking about that, but
it's like, mate, the last week we're in Shrewsbury, of all places, with a lot of my guys doing this SAS Special Forces experience with Ollie Olin and his team. And I got roped into it. Originally, I was like, I'm just going to watch the lads facilitate the whole thing. And I got fucking roped into it, right? The mullered me. And at one point, we got chased across the countryside by dogs and blokes with guns. And it feels real. And we've got this Alsatian barking in my face. I've got a bag over my head, a blindfold on, I can't see. And that's all right. Do you know the worst part, Phil? When I was lying face down on the grass, there was no noise. I couldn't feel anyone. I thought I was on my own. That was the worst part. Not getting chased across the field, but not getting manhandled by men, not dogs about this far away from us barking and snarling, not being blindfolded, but just not knowing what's going on because it was just me and my thoughts. That was the hardest part. Because you're like, am I on my own? Where's everybody else? What am I doing? Can I look up? Do you know what I mean? That's for me, that's impressive. Like that is impressive because your brain is just incredible at inventing problems that don't exist.
Crazy. And I guess the guys in the forces, particularly, SAS Marines, phenomenal, right?
Yeah, amazing.
It's this mindset thing. And you hear it, there's the advert, right? And the advert actually sums it up fairly well, right? There's these guys in this boat and, they're experiencing this thing, right?
And they're all blacked up and that.
And it's this solitary element to it, right?
Yeah.
Which is the disturbing thing. It's like you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know if anything's going to happen.
Yeah.
You've got to be completely switched on.
Yeah.
But you've also, to some degree, probably got to be completely switched off. Otherwise, you'll fry yourself.
Yeah.
And it's all those aspects, right?
Yeah, it's mad. And I think, do you know what a lot of these guys are great at is just being this sounds hippie-ish as fuck, in an environment that is not hippie at all, is just being present, being there, nowhere else. Not in the future, not in the past, not with anybody else, but just there in the moment.
And do you think that vocabulary has changed? You said that sounds pretty hippie, and I think our generation would look at that and go, yeah, that sounds pretty hippie. But to me now, that sounds like quite a productive thing to do. Is be present, right?
Yeah,
it's something that, and again, we'll talk about you and family and things like this. Is that being present as a man?
Yeah.
In a family situation, and as a woman as well,
so hard, and your kids will tell you when you're not present.
Yeah, absolutely, they will.
All the accountability rules. Dad. Dad, Dad, it's not something to tell you. They can get your kids can get your present fast. Yeah, but it's being like, and this, do you know, Phil? I think this is why I love jiu-jitsu so much, because it's like violent meditation. I can't be anywhere else. I can't be in the past. I can't be in the future. I can't be thinking about what's happened today. I can't be thinking about what that prick said about me. I can't be thinking about any of that stuff, because I've got to be completely present. And I think that's what happens to a lot of these military guys. A lot of them will talk about time slowing down. That's what it feels like. Time slows down a little bit when you're completely present. It's a difficult skill, especially for someone like me, because I move. You'll get this at a hundred. You know,
your head's a million miles an hour, right?
Yeah, I'm a million miles an hour. So I think that's why I love it so much, and that's why I have to practice meditation a lot as well.
Okay, so tell me about meditation. So when did you start doing this?
The start of meditation, the first time was when I went out to a place in Laguna Beach, California called Wake Up Warrior. This is where another one of these calls where I got woke up. And they taught me a style of meditation. And I was like, actually, this has got something. And then I ended up going on a course called Ascension with these guys who are called Ashaya monks. They give up their name, they renounce everything, and they become monks. Actually, one's coming tomorrow. My coach is coming tomorrow. And the most amazing thing about meditation is most people have got it wrong. You cannot empty your mind of thoughts. It's impossible. You think about when we're lying down or sitting down and we're not doing anything, there's only one thing to do, and that's think. Like we don't even breathe. Like we're being breathed, if that makes sense. Like try stopping breathing, and you'll soon find out you can't. Yeah. Right? You can't for very long anyway. We're being breathed, right?
Well, you touched on it earlier. It's like the pink elephant. You know, you tell someone not to think about pink elephant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like going into a titty bar.
From your mind now, because
like going into a titty bar. Yeah, it's like going into a titty bar, not looking at the tits. It's my favorite analogy ever. I don't care how good you are, how hot your wife is. You're looking at the tits in the titty bar. Period. Do you know what's funny? My kids have just walked in the room next door.
It's like king of analogies.
They'll have heard me say that before. They'll have heard
king of analogies.
But
Eddie, what's a titty bar?
Probably no. So the meditation, again, we get this thought of we taught and we condition to think that it's about not thinking anything, but that's impossible. Yep. As soon as you lie down and you keep your body still, you can't not think. It's impossible. So what meditation taught me, or the style that I learned, was that almost I can't be in two places at once. So I learned they call them attitudes. They're kind of like mantras that you say in your head to yourself, kind of like that. I cannot be doing that using these. I don't know why I'm doing this beard action. I can't be doing that thing and thinking about tomorrow at the same time. It's like, do you know when people say when you can't fall asleep, you need to count sheep?
Yeah.
They say that because when you focus on counting sheep,
on one particular thing,
your attention can only be on counting sheep.
Yep.
So meditation changed me in the way that we talked about it earlier. Like I can't be focused on two things at the same time. This has helped with the anxiety that I had on flights, the supposed phobia that I had of the dentist. All of these were not cured by meditation, but meditation helped me get an understanding, because I can't have simultaneous thoughts. It's like my mind's like a compass needle. It's like it can only point in one direction at a time. So meditation just is a training, a form of exercise for me to get present, to practice being present. The more I do it, the better I get. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. This is Paul Mort speaking.
This is Paul Mort.
This is me, mate. Yeah.
So it's so how often do you meditate?
Every day.
Every day. So this is a religious thing that you do. Is this a part of your morning routine? Is it your evening routine? What is it?
I do it. I usually do it after lunch or before I go home from the office.
Right.
So it's an amazing time for me to just, because you know what it's like, mate, when you're self-employed, the difficult thing is separating the two quite a lot.
Yeah. Business
especially right now, it's just hard to kind of, because we're not clocking out anymore, right? And the longer you've done it for, I mean, you've been, how long have you been self-employed for? A long time, right? Yeah. So we're so used to integrating the whole thing. And part of me is like, I don't mind doing that. Like, I don't feel like I've got a job and it doesn't feel that separate. But sometimes when I'm at home, I want to be at home mentally as well as physically. So meditation is just a great cap to the end of the day for me. And sometimes if I get a little Brucey bonus, sometimes I might nod off, and I'm okay with that. If I nod off, I'm cool. If not, I'm also cool. So yeah, it's an afternoon.
So you're doing this at the office?
Yeah, at the office. I've even got a special chair that I lie on. Yeah, it's one of those kickback cinema chairs. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Right. So I do that at the office. Yeah. 15 minutes.
So let's talk about your day. So you start your day when?
my day usually starts at around about 6:30.
Around about 6:30, right? Yeah. So again, we're not going to frame this whole thing of, you get up at 5, blah, blah, blah. So 6:30 is...
No, I mean, I'm not, this is not in for me.
So 6:30, is that because that fits with the family now?
It fits with the family. I don't set an alarm. It feels like the natural time. Sometimes I'll have to set an alarm, but usually when I go on holiday, I have to set an alarm. But it's like, when to catch your flight, you have to set an alarm, right? But, so normally that feels like my natural wake up time. Maybe it might be a little bit later in the winter. In the summer, it might be earlier. Yep. And again, I know someone will be listening saying, you're lucky to be able to do that. And listen, there's no luck. You create your own fucking life, right? So, and again, so I'm up then. My first thing I do is always journal. That's the first thing I do. I get my mind. I use the questions that are the steering wheel of the mind to steer me towards feeling great.
Right. So what are you doing this? Are you lying in bed doing your journal, or are you
often,
up, you have a coffee?
Often I lie in bed. Often I lie in bed. Sometimes I'm downstairs having a coffee.
Right.
Real simple. Sometimes, mate, again, I'm going to sound like a right privileged arsehole here, but sometimes I do it in the infrared sauna. Sometimes, yeah. And then
sweat on the pages.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, mate, that's a problem. Yeah. The infrared's a bit better though, because it's not hot on the outside, is it? It's not really hot on the outside.
So in amongst this, you're telling me about a lot of stuff that would fall under, and I hate using the term because I think there's some really wacky shit out there.
Yeah.
Is almost like this biohacking scenario, right?
Pretty much,
so you've got something. So you mentioned infrared sauna there, journaling.
Yeah. Do you know what I do, mate? I do shit that makes me feel great.
Cool.
I do stuff that makes me feel good.
So what's the rationale behind the infrared sauna?
So the rationale behind the infrared sauna was that when I was younger, I used to love having saunas at the local leisure centre. And I saw Rhonda Patrick's. I saw Dr. Rhonda Patrick's stuff on Joe Rogan, where she was talking about this infrared sauna. And the benefits seemed pretty cool. And I'm like, do you know what? It's a cool thing to do. One of my biggest challenges as a man is recovery and rest and tiredness and sleep. And that seems to impact all of them. And I was like, man, I used to buy, you may have seen it. You ever seen a portable sauna?
Yes.
Like, it looks like a portable masturbation tent. I used to keep buying them. And then my wife was like, why don't portable masturbation tent? It's amazing. And I used to buy them all the time. And I just felt great after I had one. Great for recovery. Great for I just feel great after I have them. So my wife was like, why don't you just get one for the house? So sometimes I'll do that. And then I use this app called State. It's like a breathing app. It's like the Wim Hof kind of stuff. I trained with Wim Hof a couple of years ago. And that, again, made me feel great. People are like, why do you do all this stuff? I'm like, because it made me feel good, period. Like, I want to spend the first part of my day not doing shit that I hate, but doing shit that just lifts my state a little bit. So for me,
so you're doing the Wim Hof breathing.
Doing the Wim Hof breathing.
Are you doing the ice stuff?
I'm doing the cold shower.
Cold shower.
2 minutes straight in. This routine, mate, I'm telling you right now, takes me 30, 40 minutes maximum. I'm not spending 3 hours on a morning routine. And then I walk to the office.
And the office is how far?
The office is about, it takes 30 minutes. 30-minute walk. Yeah.
And that'll be fresh in South Shields at times, right?
Mate, right now, I'm trying to do live videos. My hands are fucking sticking to my phone. It's so cold. In fact, yesterday,
South Shields is very north.
It is, mate. And honestly, when I try to end the live video, the button wouldn't work because the screen was wet.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but I do that every single day, and though that's it. That's as complicated as it gets. I've done the complicated.
But it's a pretty solid routine, right? So when in amongst this, are you hydrating? When are you eating?
I'm usually eating right before I leave for the walk, and I'm just doing porridge with vegan protein powder in it, and maybe a bit of peanut butter.
Are you vegan?
That's it. I'm not vegan, but whey protein makes me fart really bad.
Oh, okay.
I'm not vegan.
To the point.
Do you know why I'm not vegan? Because meat's delicious.
And we'll debate that on another podcast.
We will debate that. I'm not getting into that.
Leave your comments below.
Yeah. Piss off, Phil. You'll be giving them your Facebook handle next.
No, you'll be giving them at the end.
Yeah, but it's a nice, simple ritual and routine. Again, you've got to consider. I saw a post about this the other day and I loved it. When a 21-year-old's telling you to do this 3-hour morning routine and you've got 2 kids and you're trying to get them to school on time and you've got...
Who was that? I saw that as well.
You must have seen it.
It was very good.
I think it was Ryan Lee. Remember Ryan Lee?
Yeah, it might have been. I'm
actually on his podcast after this one. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone posted it and I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because I used to be that guy. And that added more stress to my life.
Yeah, because you're trying to chase this thing that just doesn't logistically work. You know, I talk a lot about logistics, right?
Yeah.
This is something I was contending with my clients was logistics. Ultimately, I am about logistics. I'm going, look, if you can't, let's talk nutrition, right? A lot of people, they haven't got the time, or they can't make the time, or they don't see the benefit of that time in finding food, the right food, right? So I'd help them find it.
Yeah.
Some people don't know how to make it, so I'd help them make it, or I'd point them in the direction of someone who could do it. So it's all these things. It's just logistics, right?
Yeah, it is.
Just looking at the logistics of someone's day and going, look,
and I think
this works for you, won't work for me.
Yeah, and this is why I didn't mention this. I didn't want to mention the sauna too much, because we're traveling quite a bit right now.
Yep.
For events, for book things, for recording audios, for PR, for interviews, etc., etc. And my morning ritual can't just get fucked off because I'm traveling.
Yeah.
So it has to be. It's a portable morning ritual, except the sauna, obviously, unless I had the portable sauna still. It's a portable. It doesn't take loads of time. It's simple and it's convenient. We'll often always choose the convenient thing. So I want to make it convenient. My morning ritual should not require willpower.
And it doesn't facilitate you turning around and going, I'm too busy. That doesn't work. It doesn't work, right?
Exactly.
You can't go, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Because you can have a cold shower anywhere. You can journal anywhere.
Yeah.
You can do all these different things anywhere in the world, right?
Breathing. I can meditate without my phone. I just need a watch. And again, I could probably do it. Do you know what? I've done it for so long now and so often that I could probably guess 15 minutes and get it right.
Yeah.
I could probably guess 15 minutes. But yeah, it's a thing that this morning ritual, I think it's from the whole military thing. They're coming in and they're saying, you got all these military guys saying, I'm not, by the way, notice I didn't mention exercise in there really either, just a walk. If I train really hard in the morning, I'm fucked for the rest of the day.
So walk's not exercise. You just walk 30 minutes. That's probably more than the average person does in a day, right?
Do you know what? I discount that, and it's one of the most important things that's kept my weight down. One of the most important things has been getting 12, 15,000 steps in a day.
You know, we talk about discipline, we talk about intent, we talk about movement a lot, right?
Yeah.
Movement is a massive factor. Yeah. You know, anybody encompasses movement into their day. But again, this thing we were talking about before is that there's been this narrative within the health and fitness sector, particularly, of movement has to be in a gym. Movement has to be this way. It has to be the other way. And you pinpointed at the start that movement for you is jiu-jitsu and walking.
Boxing.
Boxing.
Yeah. It's just all of those things. Like if I'm going to train those two things, again, the problem that I've got with those two sports is I don't seem to have a go slow mode in jiu-jitsu. Like, do you know what people, we'll just have a light spar. I'm not that good to have a light spar. It has to be hard. So I'll train it in the morning on my days off, but most of the time I'm training it when I get home. I'm training it at night time.
I'm a massive fan of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good, honestly. Yeah, it's so good. Right now, because of lockdown and that, I've had my garage matted. We just have different men coming in the garage every night. different men coming to train. You know, the maddest part, my 7-year-old daughter just sits there and watches the whole thing like it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's mad. But yeah, that's it. And again, I just think there's this thing of we have to beast ourselves all the time, or we'll have to go really hard. And I'm like, what about the rest of the day, mate? Like, I shouldn't, my morning ritual should be something that I get excited to do. You know, when people say, I can't motivate myself to get out of bed. I'm like, why should you don't need to motivate yourself.
Yeah, it's like having a breakfast you don't like.
Bang on, mate. Yes.
You know, you put it into the terminology that most people will understand.
I love that.
It's like waking up and eating a really shitty breakfast every morning. Not shitty as in bad for you, as in you don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, so you then take that and multiply it by, 5 or 6 routine things that you do, and every single one of them, it sucks. It's like drinking coffee and you don't like coffee, and
of course
because everybody else is doing it.
Mate, I love it. Yeah, of course you're gonna press snooze on that. Yeah, I love that, mate. I love that analogy of a shit breakfast, like a vegan breakfast. You mean? Start the riot.
Vegan food is some of the tastiest food I've ever had.
Yeah, I agree. Yesterday I had avocado on sourdough. I didn't even know you could get that in South Shields.
Look at you. South Shields has got all pretentious.
On sourdough, I can't believe it.
Was there seeds in it as well? Did they put seeds in it? Did they sprinkle sunflower seeds on it?
Mixed seeds sprinkled on the avocado.
Seeds.
Yeah, man, I'm going up in the world.
South Shields has changed a lot since I was last there.
I was like, no way can you get that. Yeah, man. We had a team meeting and they were like, we do avocado on. Really? Yeah.
Since when?
Yeah, mate, I love that analogy of a shit breakfast that you hate. That's it. I've never heard that before, but I'm stealing it.
But it's like how it is, right? It's the same as anything. I
want the first part of my day to be great.
But it's the same at the end of your day, right?
Yeah, and it's
like, I'm gonna drink this drink that they recommended to me before I go to bed, and I'm gonna gip and do all this stuff. I'm like, no. I mean, we go through these iterations of toothpaste, right?
Yeah.
There are certain toothpastes I just don't enjoy. I'm not eating them. I'm not eating them. But I'm like, you clean your teeth and you don't feel like they've cleaned your teeth properly.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
the taste just really crap.
Yeah, we've got this coconut one at the minute from Holland and Barrett.
I'm like, come on, you know, you bought into that one, haven't you?
I have.
Or is it like coconut charcoal?
Coconut. It's not charcoal. I don't get the charcoal on your teeth thing. I'm like, it makes them black.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get white teeth,
when
not
you
black
missed a
ones. Yeah. It's bad. Yeah, mate. But and I think sometimes we get this, and it's people are always surprised when I talk about this because of the way that I speak and some of the language that I use, and because what I stand for. People are like, people don't get the fact that you still get to do stuff that you love, and that's just you think about that. All of that is a decision. All of that is a decision. Like, why would you choose to make the first part of your day shit when you don't have to? I say you have to eat shit sometimes, but most of the time you don't have to.
Actually,
eat
use
shit.
one of your quotes from years ago about the dog shit in a can. And I must have used that. And every time I reference you, I say, Paul Mort once taught me.
Dog shit.
Dog shit in a can. Do you remember that one?
People only buy dog shit in a can once.
Once, right?
Yeah.
You know? And this is, you know, because obviously, you know, what I do with my other business is, you know, is a lot of coaches, right? You talk about business a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, if your service is crap and your business is crap and your product is crap, you're not going to win anything.
Yeah.
You know, nobody cares because
it doesn't matter how good your marketing is.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, we
like putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. Lipstick on a pig. There you go. There you go. Right. So we've established you've got this morning routine. You do these things. You get yourself in this right frame of mind. Yes. You've challenged with these things throughout your life, and ultimately you've came to the end of all of this searching and seeking and trying to find your purpose. You know, I put it down as your purpose. Maybe it isn't your purpose. Maybe you'll find your purpose. There'll be a better purpose.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for me, purpose is just like a sense. It's like a sense that I'm on a mission. And that's what I feel like right now. But my mission might change, and I'm okay with that.
Right. So where's it going then? Is there a plan?
No. Someone asked me what my end goal was. I was like, I don't have one right now. Right now, my goal in business is to get this audiobook in the top 10. That's it. Next year, I want to run 2021. This year, Phil. I want to run Europe's biggest event that's just for men. Not that I've got anything against women. I coach women still, but no one's doing anything just for men. Like in this country, I want to run the biggest thing they've ever seen. I want Tyson Fury on the stage. I want these fucking big hitters on the stage. These guys that have came through this shit. I want the people that I've had on my podcast on the stage, and I want to fill a room full of men. That's my big mission for next year. Whether it's going to happen or not, it's a completely different story, though.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I'm pretty positive it will.
Oh, thank you, man.
You need to stop with these negative thoughts, Paul. All this negativity.
But listen, I'll do my best. If it happens, it happens. Listen, if it doesn't, though, I'm all right with it. We'll find something else.
We'll do the next thing. I was going to mention something earlier, and then we kind of went on a tangent, and I kind of missed it. Is that you were talking about these, you know, this point where you were in Marbella, you had everything that you thought was the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
And you were overjoyed by all of this and blah, blah, blah. And you sat down at your pool, you know, with your Havana cigar or whatever it was, going, yeah, I've made it. I've done it. And then you're like, oh, not so much, right? And you're like this million miles an hour kind of guy.
Yeah.
You'd interviewed Chris Ramsey. I haven't seen that interview.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting thing that I've read and listened to about comedians, right?
Yeah.
And this all kind of stemmed from they brought a lot of this to the fray when Robin Williams obviously, you know, passed away.
Yeah.
And it was this whole thing about these people who spend their lives bringing this huge amount of joy to other people.
Yeah.
Is that then when they return back to the normal kind of dwelling in their normal life, everything all of a sudden just feels a little bit inferior and not quite what it should be. So did you touch on that with Chris? Did you talk about that with Chris?
I did touch on it a little bit. And what's mad is that I didn't even know this. Chris came on my podcast. Bear in mind, he's got the biggest podcast in the country right now, 1 million downloads a month, which is mad. Mate, 1 million downloads a month, which is insane. Mate, they sold out. This blew me head off when he told us. Him and his missus decided that they were going to do a live podcast show. Sold out Wembley Arena in 24 hours.
Wow.
10,000 tickets. I was like, holy shit, when do you need me to come on? But I brought him on and he said, Paul, you know the only reason I'm on? Doesn't do other podcasts. He said, the only reason I've come on because I think it was 11 years ago, you were the first person that paid me for a comedy gig. I paid him for a lot of my personal training clients. That's how long ago it was.
Really?
Said you were the first person that
But he's a local lad to you, right, Chris?
He's from South Shields, he still lives here now. Yeah. I was in his a couple of weeks ago giving him Lego. Anyway, yeah, we talked about this a little bit. And I have had this too. You know what it's like, mate? Like you speak on a big stage.
Yeah.
You speak on a big stage, body power, something like that. We speak on a big stage where the center of attention, where fucking people are taking selfies and that. And then we'll go home and we haven't took the dishwasher out. We haven't emptied the dishwasher. We haven't took the bin out. Do you know what I mean? Like, so they get that a little bit, and I still get this a little bit. Like I've got a big event tomorrow. I had a big event last week. So what I'm going to do now is I used to just cut off from the world. I'd be like, right, I need a rest. And I wouldn't contact anybody. That would be me. And Chris now, he is in this position where he has his podcast. So you got to think about this. Now that arena, mate, these comedians, what are they doing? Like he had he had a sold out podcast tour with these misses, and he had his sold out stand-up tour, both gone.
Yeah.
That's why they started a podcast. And he's like, the podcast kept him in business. So I think he'll get.
Do you think was it in business or was it in the right mental state, should we say? Was it right for him? Did he need that?
I think he needs it. His wife forced him to do it. He didn't want to do it. But they needs that because he's keeping this thing ticking over. I think if you're a performer, you got to take opportunities to perform.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's maybe about just doing more things that you think about this. People like Robin Williams, they've gone from performing to being home. For me, I mean, it's such a sad case. He was an amazing.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah.
Unbelievable actor.
He was on my list. Do you remember MySpace?
I do remember MySpace.
Yeah. So MySpace, you used to put a thing about like the people that you wanted to, have a drink with or spend time with or whatever it might be. And he was in my list.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was like somebody I'd love to have just spent a day with.
Yeah. Mate, I totally get it. And you know, what I think that happens now is, and what I've had to do, and I think this is what Chris has managed to do, maybe even by accident, is that we've created this environment that isn't just like 0 to 100.
Yeah.
So 0 is I'm at home, 100 is I'm on the stage in front of thousands of people. I think we've created this environment where think that this 0 to 100 is just a little bit closer together. He's definitely created that with his podcast.
Yeah. And
he's ended up he replaced Terry Wogan on Children in Need. That's crazy. He replaced Terry Wogan on Children in Need. And he did The Search with Little Mix. I was like, mate, fair play, I'd have a permanent boner. but it's like, I think and this is what I've had to do, is I've had to not go from 100 to 0. So for example, I've figured out that I always have to have something to look forward to. I always have to have something. And I figured this out during lockdown, mate. I drank for 2 weeks in a row for the first time in 6 years. I drank Friday the 1st of May and Friday the 8th of May. And I maybe drink 3 or 4 times a year right now.
Yep.
And I realized then, I was like, why am I doing this? And I realized it's because I had nothing else to look forward to on a Friday. Before lockdown, we'd have Mort Family Friday. We'll go to the cinema, we'll go bowling, we'll go rock climbing, we'll go to a restaurant, something simple. We'd always do something as a family on a Friday, especially on a Friday. And then that was gone. So I drank for 2 weeks in a row. And then I realized, and again, because of all this trauma that I've been through mentally and physically, I'm quite self-aware. And I was like, you know what? The reason I'm doing this is because I've got nothing else to look forward to on a Friday. The trigger is Friday. The payoff is get to do something that makes me feel good. So I needed to just replace the bit in between, which was the behavior. So I replaced it, no shit, with a chicken and shish kebab. And then I replaced it by getting back to jiu-jitsu. And then I replaced it with all these other things. So I think what we've got to do is, as people that have that, is just come from this thing where the 0 and 100 isn't so far apart.
And obviously when we're talking about health, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's slight tangent, but it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Is that what you're saying is that you replace drink with a shish kebab on a Friday night, but you want to replace that with something you enjoy, right?
Yes.
And for most people,
and that's what that's how I replace cocaine. No shit. This very desk that I'm sitting on right now, in 2015, I was still snorting coke off it before a webinar.
Really? You were like Scarface?
Yes. Before a webinar, I'd be having a line of coke of this thing. And then I replaced that rush with boxing. First time I got punched in the face with boxing gloves on, I was 35. 35 is the first time I got punched in the face with boxing gloves on. I was like, wow, this is it. This is me replacement.
The punch in the face or the boxing?
Yeah, boxing. Sorry, boxing. All of it, yeah. I got punched in the face when I was boxing. I started hitting the pads, and that's when I was like, oh, yeah. That's when I started to really think, right, this is the thing for me. I don't need to force. I started looking forward to hitting the pads, and I started looking forward to boxing. And then I got punched in the face, and I was like, yes, this is fuck the
So how many iterations of boxing have you been through before you got to that point? Or did you just think boxing be your thing? See, I with the limited, knowledge I have of you as a person, and, in the grand scheme is very limited.
Yeah.
Is that I would think Paul would probably love boxing.
Yeah. I only started boxing when I was 35. I had my first fight when I was 36, which is mad. It's mad that it is.
Doesn't surprise me.
36, first fight. Yeah, I started jiu-jitsu when I was 37.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mad, yeah. Last night, I was actually sparring jiu-jitsu with a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old. Yeah, and I got butchered. One of them was like 60 kilos, and he absolutely butchered.
Skilled, yeah.
But yeah, it's like once I got that, I replaced that high with something else.
Yeah.
I replaced that high with a different high, what I'd call a less destructive high. So when I've got these events, so tomorrow we've got an event, and normally sometimes on a Friday night, my wife will know, like I've told her, listen, I hate coming home after a big event and just sitting on the settee. I hate doing that. Because so I can create something different now. Maybe we could order a movie in. Maybe we could get a pizza in. Maybe we could do something different that is from my normal Monday to Thursday. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I create the environment matters.
So you don't want to go back to kind of the mundane, right? You don't want to go back to what's
Yeah. So I'm
difficult.
not going from 100 to 0. I might be going from 100 down to 30 or 40.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And you probably need to after a big event, right? I was I'd finish a big event and I'm a complete melt.
Deflated.
My wife used to say to me, is something wrong? Have I done something wrong? Because I wouldn't speak.
Yeah.
And it was just because my mind was absolutely fried, right?
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose I've got to set up the environment so that, and this is a nice thing to put it in, so the contrast frame isn't as different.
Yeah.
So it's it's not in the black frame, it's not in the white frame, it's right in the gray frame. So the contrast frame, it's always compared to something. If I'm comparing speaking on a stage with 1,000 people with Tom Bilyeu to sitting in my sitting room watching fucking Game of Thrones, it's a completely different frame. So now I've got to change the frame. Maybe I'll stay an extra night.
But for some people, right, the 100,
yeah,
and the big frame is the Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's what it is. The contrast frame hasn't got to be as different. Yeah. Great question, Phil. I enjoy talking about that. I've never talked about that before.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right, I'm very conscious of time. I know you've got another podcast after this.
I know you know what the time is.
And
perfect. Yes.
Yeah. And hey, like I said at the very start, we could go on for hours. You're a thoroughly fascinating chap.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
We've known each other for a long time, and cross paths.
When I was fat, Paul, a body power, yeah.
Yes, on several occasions. But Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much. I've had a blast.
Thoroughly enjoyed it as ever. And maybe we do round 2 at some point. Every single guest I've had on so far, I've gone, should we do this again? Because everybody's interested, right? Everybody's interested. Once you get below the surface and you start talking to them about, how they operate and how they function, and you fit this mold of what we look for. And I say a mold, I say this kind of outlook and this attitude towards things, right? Is that it's and again, positive is the wrong word, but you live on form, which is kind of one of our mantles, is about living on form, a lot of intent, a lot of discipline with what you do. And ultimately has got you to where you are now, which is, I think, somewhere near what your calling is. I think there's more for Paul Mort, I think.
Yeah.
I just have a hunch there's more for Paul Mort, and hey, I look forward to seeing it all happening and panning out and doing its thing. But thank you once again. So thank you for taking the time. And,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hope the book launch goes phenomenally well.
Mate, you never know. I could have been on Good Morning Britain by now.
You might have been.
Or arrested.
Yeah. Hey, I'd love to see you having a little battle with Piers.
Exactly. Either on the Good Morning Britain or Crime Watch.
It'll be on YouTube by now.
Yeah. I love it, mate. Thank you, Phil.
Cool. Thank you so much, Paul. And we'll speak again soon, all right?
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.